We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
Good morning, Delaware Valley, and for everyone around the world. This is John, Michael here. This is the TheP-LotPodcast. Man, this is it's a bit of a different vibe of the show, I feel like, because the main event has already happened. The Eagles play Thursday. They vanquished their division rival, the Washington Commanders. And Michael, I would say normally, even when there's a bye, we're just like, oh God, thank God
Yeah.
there's no game
No,
today. We can relax and
this
watch other
is
teams play. And
this is we're feeling good. This is a positive. No Eagles game upcoming to talk about. Thursday went pretty well for the most part. We'll talk about it more in a bit. But you know, for those, if you watched the entire game, and even if you looked at the stat sheet up until like the last drive, the Commanders put together, it was a demolition. It was a demolition. The defense was outstanding, but we'll get more into that later. And we wanted to start with the arena teams, with the Flyers and the Sixers. I guess we'll start with the Sixers because it's more
negative.
negative. They are struggling. They're what, 2-10 to open up the year. Embiid's only played 2 games. Friday against Orlando, he looked pretty good in the first half. He had like 14 points on like 5 of 7 shooting, or 5 of 6 shooting, whatever it was, 4 or 6 maybe. Was getting to the line, was doing his thing. Even halfway through the third, he was just kind of missing his threes. And then he had a poor fourth quarter. Ended up losing. But you're watching him play. You can see that there's a difference between being in great shape and then being in game shape. Van Gundy was very, very adamant about that during the broadcast on Tuesday against the Knicks, that, there's no way to get into game shape other than just playing games. And I mean, listen, we've watched Embiid here for the last almost 10 years now. We know that those first few games he plays the regular season are not always very fun. But once you get through like a week or two, he starts to kind of look like himself, and he's putting up crazy numbers, which ultimately lead to a lot of the team's wins. It's frustrating. You're waiting for him and George to get healthy, then they do, but Maxi's not healthy, and they still look like they're kind of in the mud, and the team looks like it's in the mud. It's not insurmountable, especially because the rest of the Eastern Conference is rather weak. Like they're 2-10, but only like 3 games out of like the 3 seed, something ridiculous like that. Like they're not that far behind, despite the fact that they're playing very, very poorly. And the schedule softens up a bit coming up here, so I'm hoping that they're able to bank home some wins. However, it's not all bad. There are some bright spots. There are some players that look like they can play. I want to start with Gershon Yabusele. If everyone remembers him from the French team in the Olympics, dunking on LeBron, and just ultimately having a pretty good Olympic run all the way to was it a silver medal or a bronze medal? Regardless,
They definitely meddled in the game in that.
I forget if that
in the,
France game was for silver or bronze. I really don't remember. But anyways, he's been a really, really nice role player. Does the dirty things like offensive rebounding, hustling. He's shown that he can score. He's just kind of doing what he was doing in the Olympics, and it's translated well to the NBA, which is nice to see. But who I really wanted to talk about, and who's been very, very exciting, and I think, is potentially massive in the future, like, outlook of this franchise is rookie guard Jared McCain. Jared McCain has been outstanding since he's gotten a extended playing time due to various different injuries, but he's kind of played himself into a starter. And even when Maxey gets back, Nick Nurse is considering that he may leave him in the starting lineup, but he's been really, really, really good. Scoring the basketball has been coming easy to him almost. He fouled out against the Magic, but he still had 29 points before he fouled out. His last, you know, since November 8th, which was that Laker game, he played an extended amount of minutes, had 18 points in 31 minutes, wasn't shooting great inside the two, but then at 27 points, 23 points, 34 points, 29 points the next 4 games. It's been legit. He's been incredible, and you watch him play, and you could see you see some shades of some NBA legends and superstars in his game for sure. He's, you know, he's throwing himself in a lot of categories where it's only 3 rookies have had like this, and it's like Steph Curry, LeBron James, Magic Johnson, and Jared McCain, and it's like, oh, didn't realize, what he was doing was that good, like that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's been enjoyable to watch him play. He's been the one bright spot, but it's been very, very bright, and a lot of the plays he makes looks very, very Steph Curry like. It's watching the one play in Orlando, or 2 plays in Orlando that really, really looked like him, and the one was him coming down on the fast break, kicking it to the corner to George, and then he never stops running, gets himself to the 3-point line. George gets it back out to him for a quick catch and shoot 3, and it was like, I mean, you've watched Steph Curry do that for over 10 years now. And there was another one where he had a big on him, and it was a very Curry-like in and out dribble to get to a layup over Jonathan Isaac, who's one of the best defenders in the league. So it's really, really cool to see that, not only did we like, oh, did they got another Maxey sort of thing, which like, yeah, but this kid could be better than that. But obviously it'll take some time, but so far it's been a beautiful start to his career.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of where you get really frustrated with the Daryl Morey, because like, yeah, obviously there was Maxey, and now you have like Jared McCain, but then you're just like, you see how they manage their first round picks and some of the trades they've made. You just kind of you just think to yourself, I don't know, like, you look at the Boston Celtics, Michael, they have so much depth, and it's like, that's kind of what you want to be, not just like trading, for psychos like James Harden.
Yeah, like I think they know. When they know that they have something. Like what was Daryl Morey saying? And it was like before the big Maxey breakout. It was like, you could call me for Michael Jordan, for 25-year-old LeBron. If Maxey's what's going back, I'm not doing it. And it was like, so they're not trading Tyrese Maxey. And I think that they should be in a
yeah,
similar
like
vibe.
that's not what I'm saying is trade Tyrese Maxey. It's more like,
no, but I'm saying like they're probably not going to send off McCain. I think when they know, they know. You know what I'm saying? Like when they hit something big, I think they know they want to keep it.
Yeah, and Sixers are in a weird position, Michael, where like their first round pick for next year is not top 6 protected, which means unless this true intent Sixers team is like what's going to happen, like everyone's just going to be hurt, sporadically throughout the year, and we're going to be like the 2019, 2020 Nets, the Harden, Durant, Kyrie Nets.
The year after they went to the conference final, whatever it was,
like where they're just never going to play together. If it's going to be like one of those deals, which I mean, I hope that's not what happens. I mean, God, would you be terribly upset if they got Cooper Flag added to this core? Like, listen, not really.
No, but the odds of, well, obviously they can't Well, no, it's top 66, sorry. But, like, the odds that I mean, are they really gonna be the worst team in basketball? I don't know, it
Well,
feels
I mean, you could
unlikely.
theoretically be a a bottom five team and win the lottery. It's
You
not
could, you
exactly
could.
unheard of.
I do think, obviously, the caution is growing or whatever, but there is a stretch in the schedule that, if Embiid starts looking more like himself for a full, game, they just win a lot of games that he plays.
Of
Like, it's
course
just
they
how
do.
it's kinda
I think.
been.
Well, here's my thing, Michael. This is just a hypothetical, and then we'll move on to the Flyers. Like it's like February, and you're like 9 games out of a playoff spot, and Embiid is like healthy. He's playing really well.
You said 9 games?
Yeah, like let's just
Yeah.
say they just blow chunks, like serious chunks, for whatever reason, and I don't know. It's just hypothetical. Do you? At what point are you just like
Shutting it
sit
down.
Embiid for the rest of the year so he can basically get hyped, like supercharged, healthy for next season?
Yeah, I think it would have to it would get to a point. It would have to get to a point because, as much as it's easy to say, "Oh my god, just throw it in the tank already." The whole point of this Paul George thing was, like, these first 2 years of the contract was supposed to be, like, these are the golden opportunities, your last chances, your last runs with Embiid, perhaps at playing at, a top 5 level, and you're gonna get, like, the ascending maxi, and you have whatever's left of the juice of Paul George, and this is gonna be what our run is. So to, like, abandon it in, October in some people's mind, in November even now, even in December, it would be rather unfortunate, and I don't think, we should be hoping for it, but I think it does get to a point if you're in January, February, probably, like, the trade deadline is when you'd know if it's worth keeping or not. Um, if they're close to double-digit games out of, like, the 6th seed by January or in February, then maybe, yeah, it's time to pull the plug, but, like, if I had to guess, or at least a hope of what's gonna occur, is that by the time the trade deadline's close to rolling around, I'm hoping they're, like, at or a few games above 500, and you'll be able to kinda you gotta watch because the whole point of this experiment was to make sure that Embiid was healthy in the playoffs, so you don't wanna be like last year where you were trying, but then he, like, really, really got hurt, and then you kinda sorta, kinda rushed him back. You did, but you didn't, but he definitely wasn't 100%, and you couldn't really sit him the last handful of games anyways because you were pushing to make the play-in. So, like, you were really pushing him at the end of the regular season, and he probably got a little more banged up there before the playoffs actually started. So, you don't wanna be in that position where you really have to push to make the playoffs, and you do, and it's kind of ruins the whole point of what the plan was. But at the same time, what also ruins the whole plan is them missing the playoffs. So, you know, I think you'd rather make it than miss it, but it's just it's not an ideal start for what the hope of this season was. Like, the regular season, in more ways than every other way, was supposed to be like, "Oh, it doesn't really matter all that much for the Sixers." They're just trying to get through it healthy and be at, like, a respectable seed, and now it's just kind of off the rails to start the year, and you gotta kinda get it back on track before you can keep pushing through with that plan.
Okay, you want to transition over to the Flyers? So I think,
Yeah, it's so
yeah,
much more enjoyable, but
yeah.
shout out
So
Jared McCain. I have to
shout out Jared
give him his
McKean.
give
So
him his flowers.
well, Michael, the Flyers have been, I would say, this past week have been
Are they
playing
surging?
well. I'll say this: they're playing better defensively. And I
Yeah,
think part of the reason is that some of their, I think Emil Andre needs to be playing every
he
day
did
up in
get
Philly.
banged up, unfortunately, last night. I'm hoping
Mm,
it's not too bad, but yes, Emile Andre, he's been the X factor. I don't know if Nick told you the stat on Thursday night about Emil Andre, but it was like the team when he's on the ice is averaging like 16 shots for, and then when he's on the ice, they're averaging also like 5 shots against. Like it's some ridiculous disparity that is pro Flyers for when he's on the ice. Emil Andre, if you could put it into like a comparison to maybe think about who he reminds you of, your mind immediately goes to Kimmo Timonen as like the smaller offensive-minded defenseman that can just play. Like Timonen wasn't necessarily some defensive force or some defensive huge stopper, but he could play. It was very, high IQ, always in the right spot, could make a play when he needed to, but definitely his biggest asset was he was able to help drive the offense from the defensive position. And Emil Andre is a very, very similar style of player. You combine that with you've been getting better goaltending the last week or so from both Erson and Fedotov. Obviously, Erson got a little banged up, but Fedotov back-to-back games, back-to-back wins for him. Even though he gave up 4 in Ottawa, he faced like an onslaught of shots and made some huge ones down the stretch, both at the end of regulation and in overtime to help spring what was eventually Matvei Michkov's overtime winner, who once again had a very nice night last night in the win against the Sabres. Very fun play watching him hold up on his breakaway to create a 2-on-0 with Konechny, then the fake shot setting up Konechny for the goal. Michkov also, you talk about his creativity and just the talent and the skill that he has, and him trying to bank a shot off the goalie's head. It hits the crossbar. It was like this close to getting in there. Um, he's he's wonderful. He's incredible. It's very, very nice to have, and I'm happy that he's back in the lineup. But Emil Andre as like a little spark plug for the team, and also Anthony Richard as a nice spark plug too. He came in the lineup when they actually scratched Michkov, but since they brought back Matvey, Morgan Frost has been the one getting scratched, and Richard has been playing excellently. So I think that he's a guy that should probably stick around, and the next time you make a switch to get Frost back in the lineup, it should probably be like Noah Cates that goes and sits. But
I agree.
regardless, they've
And
been looking
obviously,
much
like
better.
shout out to Samuel Erson. Like he's been very good
Oh,
between
he
the
was
pipes.
incredible. Yeah.
He's obviously like he's obviously locked down the number one spot, and obviously I think Kolosov needs game to play games to get experience. He's clearly
I'll have
better
an
than
opportunity
Fedotov.
here. Yeah. I mean, Fedotov, listen, you gave the contract to him, so you don't want him to totally suck, but he really did struggle early in the season. However, the last few games he's played has been much better, has been much more encouraging. You know, if you roll through this year, excuse me, with Samuel Erson as your starter, and you have two guys in Ivan Fedotov and Alexei Kolosov as kind of the backup, you kind of ride whichever backup's playing better at the moment. It's not, anything crazy. It's not anything that's gonna win anything significant, but it's sustainable that if everything else is kinda clicking nicely, maybe that is enough to kinda slide into a playoff spot. But, um, yeah, I mean, Kolosov will have an opportunity to play now with Erison being banged up for a little bit. I'm sure whenever the next game is for the Flyers, we will be seeing Kolosov with Fedotov playing back-to-back games. I think they'll want to just kind of switch it up, give him some reps, which would be good. But overall, back to positives with the Flyers. They're fun to watch again. It's always fun to watch Matt Bay, but
Obviously,
there's
Matvey had
no way.
the goal last night off the back of the goalie's.
We just missed it. The crossbar off the
Oh, just missed the
back. Yeah,
crossbar.
just missed it. Yeah,
Yeah, I was
but
watching that.
he's close.
I
He's
missed the game
close.
last night. I was off roading
Yes, very.
last night. I was off roading last night, so I didn't get a chance to actually watch the games as they happen. I just watched highlights. I'll say so. Matvey, since being benched for 2 games, even though we thought it was stupid, I mean, he's been playing much better. Um, I don't know if he was just watching more film, watching the games happen. Maybe he just needed a breather because he was just like overwhelmed by the any,
Yeah,
I
whatever
mean,
it
it's
is. It's
obviously worked. I mean, now like with
my
Gordon,
yeah. Whatever like the point or whatever they were trying to make with it. The biggest positive I can take away from it, and it's just like positive for the outlook of his entire career, is that he like responded well. There's absolutely been guys that get benched by torts that don't necessarily respond super well, or it takes them a few times getting benched before they actually start to respond well. Like it kind of hits them a little harder. They come back and they start pressing and they make more mistakes and then they get benched again. It's just up and it's just frustrating. You never feel like you're belonging or comfortable or whatnot. But Michkov, getting benched for 2 games, coming back, lighting it up immediately, and continuing to stuff the stat sheet, showing that, like, he's like, "Okay, for whatever reason you benched me, I'm just showing that I deserve to be out here and should never be benched again." Um, but responded well, which was nice to see, and it just plays well that even a guy like Torts, who has been known to ruin some early careers, you know, not 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 knocking him off track, which is good.
yeah, and he's right now. He's played 16 games and has 15 points so far on the season. A point per
Mhm.
game as a rookie is
Very impressive.
pretty special.
Yeah.
And we both know like how bad offensively in terms of talent the Flyers are, in terms of guys
Mhm.
that just score
Like
goals,
high-end talent.
high end talent. And he is the high end
He
talent.
is, yeah, he
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 is
is
the high end talent. This
he
isn't.
he is good enough.
And like I'm just gonna just for like I'm gonna pull up Sidney Crosby for a
Oh
moment,
boy. I'm pretty
and
sure it
I
was
want to see what he
point per
did his
game.
rookie year because I'm gonna say this Flyers team was probably better than those early Penguins teams he was on because they had like the first overall pick like 3 out of 4 years.
And
So they
if I'm
obviously,
remembering, he was, like, point per game.
I mean, Michael, he had
Or had,
100
like,
points
100
his rookie.
points. Yeah,
Michael, he had
okay.
100 points his rookie season.
Yeah, listen, if Matvey finishes the year with 100 points, uh, we're in such good hands. I won't even I won't be able to contain myself. If he 100 would be insane, but would be very fun.
Yeah, Sidney Crosby in his career has 1,615 points.
Mm, mm,
Yeah.
yeah, very, very good.
Yeah, if
But
he gets 100, I mean,
yeah, if he gets
what if he
100
just
points,
goes on
man,
a heater? What if he gets like 95 points as a
that'd be
rookie?
insane, man. That'd
Like,
be
that's
that'd be
unheard of.
awesome. Yeah, no,
Almost
like
unheard of.
I'm
That's like,
hoping, like I'm expecting 60 points at a minimum. I'm thinking he'll be in like the low 70s by the time the year ends, which like would be awesome. Um, Anything more than that, I would feel even more elated than I do with him. But
so,
yeah,
so real quick, before we move on to the Eagles, with regards to the Flyers,
yeah.
there's a couple more like nuggets or tidbits I want to talk about, and it's about like basically because this team is rebuilding. The big thing for this Flyers team is going to be at the trade deadline. If they're going to do what they did last year, where they were a playoff team but they were sellers.
Mhm.
Uh, Ristolainen this is
Yeah,
the
that's a big
best
one.
he's possibly ever looked as a Philadelphia Flyer right now.
Easily.
Easily, right? Like he's gonna get moved, right? Like he's like
I think their hope is that he keeps playing good enough that a team will be willing to take on the rest of his contract, because his contract is not ideal. It was not a good move back in 2022, or yeah, he signed a 5-year, $25 million extension, that he becomes an unrestricted free agent in 3 more years. He has the rest of this year and then 2 more, and then he's a free agent. So you're committing, teams that make this trade, you're committing to paying him, about $5 million a year the next 3 seasons or whatever the rest of this year and at least the next 2 seasons. So, a team that would wanna trade him if you're gonna sell him or you're selling him to a contender, you need to really show that he's good enough that they wouldn't mind having him on the team for an additional 2 years. That's the big kicker. It's why it's been so hard to move him that 1, he's just been bad, so you're not gonna be able to dump that, but if he has been playing well, the contract is such a deterrent for teams trying to contend when that money could absolutely be allocated to something more that elevates your, championship window. But hopefully he continues to play at the level he's been playing and the Flyers can trade him because, it just wouldn't make sense to keep it and let it ride and then, you have to be the team to make the decision. Oh, should we just let him walk in free? Like it's no reason. And you don't want to sit on him and wait till maybe he's just an expiring contract. You wanna kinda get off of it now. The cap's supposed to go up too, which helps. It's supposed to take a nice jump after the season, which definitely helps with the Flyers, some of their bad contracts that they have on the books, so
Well, I think with Ristolainen, I think he's gonna. I mean, listen, Michael, we both know that the NHL trade deadline, when you need a defender, teams will pay out the wazoo
Mhm.
because you need it for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And if he's just gonna be like in the leaders and like block shots and hits,
Mhm.
there's gonna be a team that's gonna be like, oh well, the Flyers stink, and if we put him on our team, you know, like I don't know
I
if
mean, a
like
team that makes that move, they're not gonna they're not making the move so he's like a top flight guy, but it's maybe they have an injury and they need to replace like a
well, like
second
the Flyers
pairing,
got a
third
first
pairing.
round pick for Sean Walker, Michael. Like was a career
Sean Walker
journeyman
was playing
who
really
had
well
a really good season, and
on an
it's
expiring contract,
on an
though. Like that
expiring
was
contract. And I think with Ristolainen, if you can get like a second, like a conditional second, and like maybe like another second, like for the following year, or or something like
something
that,
like that. Yeah, you gotta see. You gotta see what
like
his
something
market will
like that.
become. Listen,
Like
it'll open up an opportunity, but yeah.
but here's my last thing. This is kind of my last piece on the Flyers. I don't know if you have anything else you want to talk about the Flyers. Morgan Frost. Morgan Frost is not playing because he's not
He's
playing
not
well
playing well,
at all. Like he's just been flat out bad. And you
Yeah.
mentioned it too. Is it torts? Partially, yeah. Part of it is also, I think, that
He's just what he is.
he's just wildly inconsistent, and he's a
Mhm.
free agent, and he was viewed as like they're playing it with Mitchkov a lot, like
Mhm.
sort of like a, oh hey, what if like he plays with Matvey, looks, I don't know, like kind of like
He
what
he wa
Hartnell.
he was supposed to be the guy that he's a restricted free agent after this year. He was supposed to be the guy that would center the Michkov line, and you'd see him take a jump up playing alongside of him, playing with a guy that creates and does everything at such an elite level that he'll be a beneficiary. It'll make him look better, and it'll just kinda bring everybody up with him, but hasn't been able to keep up. Even when he's playing without him, he's looked, struggling. I mean, he hasn't been playing, and, you know, I do think he'll be back in the lineup soon, and I think like I said, it'll be for Noah Cates. But like until then, I don't know. It's just been frustrating with him, and it's a shame because, you know, yeah, I felt that he was one of those guys that had some skill that just kind of needed to be trusted. But he's shown definitely inconsistency is more what his game is, and that's just not enough for what you're trying to build here. But we'll see how they handle it. Hopefully he has a nice strong bounce back whenever he gets back in the lineup, but we'll see.
And I'm just, yeah, you mentioned like I got the Flyers plus minus pulled up. Like Noah Cates is a +6.
He's been playing alongside Batve for a nice little
Like man, that's
week.
like I'm not like a huge Noah Cates guy, but man, that's like that's kind of tough, dude. Like to
No,
not.
listen, Noah Cates has been. I like Noah Cates, but I just think that that's a guy that I don't think he's been playing. Like you look at the line he's been on with Michkov and Richard, and he definitely looks like he is holding it back a little bit. Like those two guys are too skilled for him. Um, but hey, we'll see. We'll see how it runs. But overall, positives with the Flyers. They're sitting fifth in the Metro. You know, drag themselves out of a hole. The Metro is just kind of at this point. There's a lot of good teams in the Metropolitan Division right now, so tough to
So
build their way out.
yeah, so let's talk about the Birds. So I had a take that I've been waiting for to unleash. I don't really
Okay.
get to unleash like wild takes.
Oh boy.
So this is my wild take, Michael. It's about the Eagles and the Commanders, just franchise like overall. So as obviously, I think everyone knows that Commanders are owned by Josh Harris, and I felt very comfortable the Eagles winning that game because just for like how the Sixers have been run and operated by Josh Harris, they just blow every single big game they need to win. Every game where they need to beat a superior rival, they just can't rise to the occasion.
Sure.
So, Michael, this is my take. The Washington in the next 5 years, I'm going to say next 5 years, the Commanders in the NFC East are going to be like the Sixers. And for the next 5 years, the Philadelphia Eagles will be like the Boston Celtics. When you look at the Boston Celtics, how they are and how much we despise them and how much we like hate on the Sixers. The Boston Celtics right now and the Eagles are like run almost the exact same way. Everyone hates the Sixers. Oh my God, look at all the great players they have. Well, how do the Boston Celtics get their players, Michael? They just go
Mhm.
out and get players. They go out
Yeah,
and
they
draft.
they find ways to pay, which feels impossible. Going to get Drew Holiday and Porzingis additionally to what they already have. No, listen, I see the parallels, and it's not a bad one.
Like
I
Jason Tatum is like despised.
yeah,
Some of it's like unrealistic. Like,
yeah, for sure.
and then you look at Jalen. Like that,
Yeah,
the
Jalen gets a
Jalen
lot of crap.
takes. This like I've never like I don't know what I see it on Twitter.
I
People
think it's a
are
lot of jealousy with him, like, just as a human. I think people are jealous and call him, like, Mr. Perfect, like, because he's a good-looking dude. He's, like, stylish, he talks in very inspirational ways. Everyone's like, "Okay, Mr. Perfect," like, this guy's, you know I don't know. It's a weird obsession with not liking Jalen Hurts. Maybe everyone remembers the national championship game he got benched and, like, forever has it ingrained in their mind that, like, he's a fraud or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, it feels, like, personal with him, honestly, for a lot of people, for what is, like, actually a really great guy.
well, didn't when Tua before Tua got hurt, like his senior year, didn't Tua get hurt in the national championship and Jalen had to come back, or was that like the SEC championship?
It might have been something else. That might have been a that next year on, like, a conference championship. I forget what it was, but I know what you're talking about. Um, but yeah, I don't know, it's ridiculous. Although back to your take, you're pushing the Josh Harris narratives, which, like, I don't think's a bad one. I think I have my Commanders, like, big picture with them keeping it, I guess, together with football is that this Commanders team reminds me a lot of the 2021 Eagles. I think even down to the fact that their quarterback's like a dual threat, but you look at what they have, new coaching tree, new quarterback, like new starter. You're kind of building your team around the quarterback's strengths, and you just look at how they played their schedule. They've lost to the good teams that they've played, and they've beaten, the bad teams that they've played. They've played some, what, 3 good teams, 4 good teams now? What are they, 7-3 right now? They played 3 good teams kinda and lost all of them. Um, you know, they're winning games that they feel like they have no business winning. They're not playing good enough to win. If we all remember that Eagles game in Carolina against Sam Darnold that they won 21-18. That was one of my least favorite games I've ever watched that they ended up winning. Um, the 2021 Eagles, I didn't enjoy watching them. It wasn't fun to watch them. They got hammered here and there. They kind of figured things out, and the way the rest of the year went, they were able to beat all the bad teams in their way and eventually made the playoffs where they got spanked by a good team and a good quarterback. That was the big MO. They couldn't stop a good quarterback for almost like 3 years. And the Commanders are in, I think, a similar situation where for this year alone isn't the worst thing in the world. If this is your year 1 of your rebuild, like looking at just like a total like objective view where it's like, okay, year 1 of this era, year 1 of the new quarterback with a new coach, you're sitting in this position, you can't be like too down on yourself. You can't be too pessimistic that you lose to the Eagles who, 2 years removed from a Super Bowl, the whole thing, it looks like they're hitting their stride, all that sort of stuff. The way the rest of their schedule goes for the Commanders, it's not hard. Like, it's a pretty easy schedule. They're playing, listen, they're playing a 4th place schedule. It's usually how it goes, like the 2021 Eagles did. Um, so, you'll be able to manage and probably make the playoffs just because you'll be able to beat on what is mostly some bad teams for the rest of the season. And that's why it puts a lot of pressure on the Eagles to continue to keep winning, not because they aren't better than the Commanders. They very obviously are, but because the Eagles do have some tougher games left than what the Commanders have that, if they slip up, they fault a bit, then you might be in some struggles trying to finish off and win the division, which obviously is the big first goal for what this season has turned up and could possibly become. But to
I
the
have the
game,
Commanders'
it's
schedule
yeah,
pulled up, Michael.
yeah. Go ahead. It's just
Uh, they play
they're
next week. Next week they play
play the Cowboys, right?
the Cowboys, 1 o'clock.
Cooper Rush.
They
Okay,
should. Mm,
they
they
should beat
should
the
win.
Cowboys. Yep.
They should win. Cowboys look like they are. They're a complete dumpster fire.
Hmm.
Then the following week, at home against the Titans,
They should win.
they should win.
Yep.
Even even though the Eagles exposed the Commanders' probably biggest weakness as a team is that their run defense is bad. The Eagles trampled them on the ground.
Hmm.
The Eagles had what? 240 yards rushing.
Listen, I mean, the Commanders, it wasn't like a surprise. Like entering the game, they had given up the most 10+ yard runs in the league. They give up 5 yards carry. Like teams knew the Eagles. I mean, look at the Steelers. The Steelers were able to pound the ball and move the ball. They put up 27 points in Washington. The Eagles just kind of helped. They just knew what was coming and exploited it more. But yeah, like you said, it's Cowboy game should be a win. Titan game should be a win. What's next?
At New Orleans.
It should be a win.
At
Maybe
home
that's a
versus the
tough
Eagles.
like that's they're playing tough games there, and you know that game could very much that's going to be a very important game for the Eagles. But for the Commanders, they're going to view it as like winnable ish. Like it's not like a guaranteed loss for them by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a tight division game that maybe down in their stadium doesn't go as well. Okay, what's next? The is it
At home versus the Falcons.
That's another toughish game, but
The
again,
Kirk Cousins semi
revenge.
revenge
But
game.
like that's another, the Falcons defense has been shaky, but That's you get that at home, that
I mean, you
helps,
also
and
got
then
Bijan. Like, they're going to be
sure,
feeding
yeah, they gotta
and
run the ball.
Algier the ball.
But the Commanders' offense, I think, will be able to
And then
kind of
they
move the
finish
ball
at
at the
Dallas.
Cowboys. Yeah. So what are we looking at there? 2 tough games for them.
I can't imagine though, Michael, and we know how the NFL works.
hmm
Are the Commanders just going to beat every single bad team?
So far, so good, right?
I mean, here's the thing though. And well, Michael,
Like it's true.
yeah, but Michael, should we pull up the Theo Ash video of
No,
Cliff
I
Kingsbury's EPA like legitimately dips?
yeah, there's reason to believe. I saw so I'm like towing the line of those takes right now because Theo exposes how bad Cliff Kingsbury offenses get as the year goes on. But then I saw another kid break it down, and he was like, "I'm not saying it's not happening, but I think we should wait and see before we start unleashing the Cliff Kingsbury choker takes. Like, if you were to tell me that they were going to play a tough game against the Steelers, but, what I think is one of the best defenses in the league, and they lose a tight one, and then go on the road in a short week against the Eagles and have a frustrating game that they kind of get dominated by a good Eagles team, he's like, I wouldn't have been that shocked. Like, I don't think it's something that is unheard of that it's happening at this point in the year.
Yeah, but
Um,
Michael, it's pretty bad when
I think we need to wait and see. Like if they go out and play Dallas next week and they struggle and it's going through the mud and they barely squeak out of there with a win, or God forbid for them, they lose, then I think we can start sounding the alarms. But if they go out against Dallas and like kinda hand it to them, and then they go out against the Titans and hand it to them, it's like, okay, maybe it's not a Kingsbury collapse, they're not good enough yet. They're a good team, but they're not good enough to compete with even the likes of the Steelers, let alone the likes of the Eagles. So, I think it's still a wait and see with Washington. I don't think it's a collapse right now. Maybe it's a beginning of one, but I think it's still they've deserved the right for the fans and the media and whatnot to wait and see because of the way they've been able to take care of business against bad
I'm just
teams
if
early
they
in the year.
finish 10-7, like that to me is
Yeah,
I don't
10-7, I would be disappointed for the way they started in them, yeah.
well, I mean,
But if they go 12-5, like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, I just feel like though when you look at Dan Quinn's coaching history, his first year with the Falcons, you know, with arguably better players than they have now on the Commanders.
yeah, definitely.
He started off 5-0 and then finished 7-9. You look at Cliff Kingsbury's body of work as when he's running his offense with mobile quarterbacks. They either get injured, which Jaden Daniels
He's got a rib injury, like, he just hasn't run as much since the rib injury,
and
and he
with
just keeps
Kyler, you
winning.
saw what happened. Like, looks great September, October, and then after when those months end, the offense just kind of takes a dip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. There's a lot of history there that shows
No, and I'm not disagreeing with you.
the regression per se, and it's like, but here's the thing though, is like it's their first year of all these guys working together. I'm just saying, like, if you're gonna be like, oh my god, it's so disappointing, it's like no, like we have some like no, we're gonna go out in free agency and then in the draft and then load up and then
Listen, the 2021 Eagles, they went
that's
9 and
kind of the
8.
goal. Yeah,
Yeah,
but my point is like I don't think they have the savvy. I don't think they're smart enough to do that. Like
maybe not,
Michael, like
maybe
let's
not.
just talk. So let's stop talking about this. Like basically, the only other competent team right now in the division besides the Eagles, the Washington Commanders. I'm sick of talking about them. Let's just talk about the Eagles real quick. This is kind of where I go back to my take on the Commanders being like a Josh Harris Sixers team. The Eagles offseason, they've made there's 3 moves they've made that have completely changed the trajectory of this team compared to last year
Mhm.
when they collapsed. What were the Eagles main issues, well, besides coaching, that was the big thing we all mentioned.
Yeah,
Was
like player issues. It was
player issues was DeAndre
linebacker.
Swift was inconsistent. They didn't fully trust him with the ball, right? He
Mm-hmm.
ran for 1,000 yards despite having like 400 yards his first like 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
Right. Number 2 was that their secondary was like dog crap.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The Eagles went out in the draft and they made this is insanity to me because I've never seen the Eagles do this. Their first 2 picks have made almost an immediate impact. Like when I say immediate impact, like they're playing like incredibly well, not like for rookies, like in general.
No, it's like it's all pro level.
Yes,
from both of them.
it is.
Like according to Pro Football Focus, they do their halfway through the year all pro teams, like who's graded the highest. Like Cooper DeJean is the second highest graded corner right now in the
Yeah.
NFL. Like it's just been he's been unbelievable, and obviously Quinion Mitchell has also been equally incredible. But go ahead, please.
So yeah, Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. So Quinion Mitchell fell in the draft basically because he played at Toledo.
Yeah.
And Cooper DeJean fell in the draft because he was injured. The Commanders executed a trade with the Eagles to give the Eagles Cooper DeJean. And with the 2 second rounders they got back, Michael, they drafted Jazier Newton, who doesn't really play a whole lot with them, and Ben Sinnott, who doesn't play at all.
Yeah. That's big there for the Eagles. Yeah, I mean, you look at the biggest thing from last year this year, obviously, like you said, running back, secondary, linebacker. The running back, it's easy, Saquon Barkley. Just been all we said he needed to have a McCaffrey type of impact, and we are seeing it. He is having the McCaffrey type of impact. Um, the ability to take over games, the ability to close a game out, just big play waiting to happen. He finally got his long touchdown run at the end. He's been incredible. No, no notes. Can't complain. It's been worked out almost perfectly. Then you look at the secondary, like you said, the 2 draft picks being huge catalysts. I mean, even, the Tampa game was kind of a disaster on the defensive side of the ball, and it's because they had, like, bad information. Like, Vic Fangio said, "We thought Baker was gonna hold the ball." Even Jalen Carter during the week was like, "Oh, we know he likes to hold the ball," and it's like, who the hell told you that? Like, that's never been true. Baker does not hold the football. Gets rid of it quick, especially against the Eagles. It's every time you play him, he gets rid of the ball in under a second. So,
Well, I think they were
obviously
looking at when
they were going
Dave
off the
Canales.
Broncos game.
I think they were looking at Dave Canales tape and
They were
not
looking at
Liam
the
Cohen
Broncos
tape.
tape where he held the ball long because they were playing press coverage and, like, they weren't able it was erroneous. It was if you ask me what I think of Baker Mayfield, I wouldn't say a guy that's holding the ball too damn long. So that was terrible on their part and, like, the preparation, whatever information they got. But since then, the defense has been incredible, and obviously this aligns well with when Cooper DeJean was inserted into the lineup as the starting nickel corner. He's been probably the best in the league by far. Quinyon Mitchell has been scaring teams out of just not throwing at him because he's been that good and that locked down on that side of the field. Um, Darius Slay has been incredible all year again. It's very easy to pick on Slay because he goes on the podcast, he, tweets his stats after a loss. It's all that sort of stuff that makes it easy for fans that dislike him, but a lot of those people get very, very quiet when he's playing well because I don't know, a 33-year-old corner who's going to turn 34 playing at this level is kind of unheard of. It's just the fact of the matter. You don't see guys into their low to mid 30s like him continue to hang around and keep up and
I
continue to
wonder if
play at elite
somebody
level.
said something to Slay after that game where they were just like, you know, We've got all these young.
Honestly, no. I doubt that it was. I just think I don't know, like, he gives up a 7-yard out route on, like, 3rd and 5, and everyone's ready to cut his head off, and it's, like, the first play of the game or something, first drive of the game, but then he'll won't allow more than, like, a catch for 2 yards the rest of it, and you don't hear a peep from anybody. I think it's one of those players that, the way he acts and whatever isn't something that the fans love, but so, like, in turn, he doesn't get the credit when he plays well, but, like, it's like the last 5 weeks, he's given up a total of, like, what was it? Like, 8 catches over the last 5 weeks for, like, 80 yards, something ridiculous. Ridiculous numbers over the last 5 weeks.
Well, I think because the Eagles run a lot of too high safety, I feel like they have the confidence. I think his confidence has gone up because it's not like he has to do everything one on one. There's always going to be someone there to help bracket. So
Sure, I mean, yeah,
all he has
it's
to
their
do is
whole
just keep the play in front
well,
of him.
yeah, it's their whole secondary's been playing that way, like, Quignon's that same way on the other side. It's very cohesive. Obviously, the safeties, Blankenship has been very, very good. And like the worst player in your secondary that plays regularly is Gardner Johnson. But even in 2022, you watch him play throughout a consistent basis. It wasn't like amazing, but he was making plays. He was getting opportune turnovers that were, changing the course of a game or putting a game away. And obviously he didn't have one on Thursday, but he, through the last handful of games, was creating turnovers again. And when he's getting turnovers, things are really, really going well because that's like if your weakest link in the secondary is a guy that's going to finish the year with like 5 or 6 interceptions, like that's by all means, that's incredible to
Well, I
have.
think
So
CJ Gardner Johnson has actually picked his game up a lot the last 4 weeks.
Listen, like the Sun, he gets cooked for CeeDee Lamb for a touchdown. Like he's a guy that's still I don't love him in man coverage. He finds himself in those situations and you're just hoping that the pressure gets home in time or whatever to avoid it. But like, you know, when he's one on one in man, his guy tends to win more often than not sometimes. But when he's back in his like center field safety role, he's able to help create turnovers, come up, make a play, hit somebody. Like it's been it's been good. The secondary's been incredible, and you saw it again on huge display Thursday night. Holding receivers to virtually nothing the entire game.
Yeah, this is Michael. If you ever
Terry
wondered
McLaurin had one catch.
like the early 2000s like Eagles defenses were
Hmm.
this is kind of it.
Yeah, no, this is
This is
definitely
kind
the
of
best
it. It's just
defense
that
I've
the
seen in my
Eagles just never
lifetime.
had like a juggernaut offense to like go along with
Hmm.
the defense. So the Eagles would win games like 17-7,
Yeah,
21-10,
yeah,
you
but it's
know.
like dominant. And then the last and almost maybe the most important, or the most surprising at least, improvement was the linebacker position. And one Zach Bond has been absolutely incredible. Um, Playing at like a top 3 linebacker level right now, and all that credit's got to go obviously to him, but like a lot of it for getting him here and getting him to play like this. It's all Vic Fangio. He's done it again where he takes like a failed edge rusher and turns him into an off-ball interior linebacker absolute problem. Um, I don't know what he sees in these guys. I don't know what he's looking for. I don't know how he gets them to do this, but he did it with Andrew Van Ginkel, and he's doing it right now with Zach Bond.
So
And
weird when you hear something weird, Zach
mm,
Bond and Andrew Van Ginkel were teammates at Wisconsin.
listen, maybe Van Ginkel told him about Bond. Who knows? Um, but yeah, I mean, Bond being a nothing but a depth pass rusher in New Orleans, turning into like this all-pro middle linebacker. It's just I don't know how he does it, but it's been it's been such a breath of fresh air. You watch him go make plays and is always in the right spot and does everything you need to. And combine that with the fact when the Kobe Dean, who has very clearly gotten better, and it's clear that when he's like the second linebacker, his role, like, he fits very well. He's been tackling a lot better since early in the year. He's been staying more disciplined out in space, and he still, blitzes well. And they're doing what the Eagles do well is they do everything they can to avoid having CJ and Nakobe Dean one-on-one and man coverage in space. That's like their that's you want to try to beat the Eagles, you want to try to get those matchups and exploit those matchups. But the Eagles do a nice job preventing those from happening. And if they do happen, they're banking on and usually get the pressure home to avoid that issue. I mean, we saw it in the Bengals game when Nakobe Dean was one-on-one with Jamar Chase, but Joe Burrow had immediate pressure in his face that he had to throw it away. He couldn't step into a throw. So all those coming together, the pass rush, Josh Sweat's been really, really good since like October started. Nolan Smith's like top 10 in pressure rate. Bryce Huff doesn't play a lot, but now it feels like every time he plays, he's beating his man pretty quickly, which is very encouraging. Um, Jordan Davis now only plays like 30% of the snaps, but when he does, he's been just an absolute unit. Like he's true the genuine nose tackle of days of old, where in today's game there's just no spot for you to play every snap or whatever. But there are situations that you need to come in, and that fourth down stop, he got it was second and inches, and Jalen Carter made the play to force it to 3rd and 1, and then on 3rd and 1 they tried running it up the middle, and Jordan Davis pushed his guy back, disarmed him, and swallowed up Brian Robinson for another 1-yard loss, forcing the 4th
Dude,
and 2.
how many times have the Commanders this year on like short yard situations won all of those reps?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They've been
Like,
really, really good. So the Eagles, and you think about the Eagles, how many short yardage defensive reps have they had where they are stopping the team? They are incredible on the short yards. You think of, the Bengals game forcing the 4th and 1 that they got too scared to just pound it again because of how good it was interior. You look at Washington, they tried pounding it on 2nd and 1 and 3rd and 1, got stuffed twice. They tried to run something creative and it didn't work. The Eagles are consistently shutting teams down in the short yardage run game, which is massive. And the fact that, Jordan
well, look at the
Davis is a huge
Giants
part of
game.
that.
Well, look at the
Yeah.
Giants game, for example. Like, we're going to talk about some brain rot tweets and then we'll get into the picks.
Yeah.
Um,
And then the last play I want to make is Jalen Carter being like God. He didn't come off the field, played every defensive snap, and had about like 20 of the 66 snaps where it was as if the offensive lineman blocking him was not even there. Just throwing guys out of the way, trying to run at him, he makes a play, trying to run away from him, he's chasing it down, wreaking havoc.
yeah.
On the
Well,
4th down, totally
yeah.
wreaked havoc there.
And, yeah, I mean, Michael, we know we've been talking about Jalen Carter since he's been drafted, as well as a lot of
Mhm.
people. Like, he's obviously a all-pro caliber player.
Yeah.
I think really all of the Georgia guys have contributed a lot so
They've
far.
all they've all gotten they've all gotten
Like,
better. They've
Keely
all
Ringo is like a special teams ace.
Mhm. And it's a
Nakobe
guy that I
Dean.
trust to be out there in a depth, like, if he has to play.
And I know, like, I basically, since the Giant game, when I tweeted about Nick, I think if I tweeted you or someone else, I tweeted like
Mhm.
Nakobe Dean. I'm like, Nakobe Dean, like all caps, because he let like Devin Singletary beat him around the edge. He took like the most crap angle
Mhm.
to him. I was just like, he stinks. And ever since the Giant game, Nakobe Dean has been playing out of his mind.
Yeah. No, the defense has come together to be like an elite group. It's been the best defense in football since October started. Um, like,
Yeah,
statistically too. Like, it's not
statistically,
just
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and like offensively, you mentioned like linemen. I just before we talk about Jalen, yeah, Cameron Jurgens has, if you think about it, Michael,
He's
one of
been
the
like
one of the
yeah.
toughest like jobs, or one of the toughest things to do in like Philadelphia sports history, replacing Jason Kelsey.
Right.
I remember when the Eagles let B-Dog go, they had like Quentin Demps, and they could not find a competent safety until like Malcolm
Mm-hmm.
to replace Brian Dawkins, right?
Right. Yeah.
As like, in more ways than one, right? Phillies. Reese Hoskins replaced Ryan Howard at first base, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion,
Right.
right?
And that
Um,
took how long? Like,
yeah, and like even now at the Phillies, like we haven't really had a guy to replace Jimmy Rollins and like Chase Utley, right?
right.
The Flyers.
You're still trying to replace like Bernie Perron.
Well, like I was about to say like Claude Giroux. Like, I mean,
No, but yeah, yeah.
like
I mean, like
is
the
Matt?
goalie, like
Matvey's not a center, but like, you know, like the Sixers, like Joel Embiid, like going to replace Allen Iverson as like, oh wow, like this guy is like our like elite player,
mm-hmm.
in the NBA, right? Cameron Jurgens, this is his second year starting. He played guard, was competent last year. He was solid, I thought. Maybe got lost in the whole collapse of the team. Like we maybe overlooked his
Everyone
positive
else
play.
did, yeah.
You know, Michael,
Listen,
he's been
Jurgens,
instrumental in the Eagles ground game. You're watching him literally just doing a lot of the same things. They're basically running like the Kelsey plays they would run, where
yeah.
he's out leading, pulling.
Jurgens has been good. There's been times where you see him and he's like missing a block. Like it's he misses a lot more. Like he's not Jason Kelsey. He's not an all pro. He's not a Hall of Fame center. So like he's just not as good. But he still shows that capability when he gets out in space, really, where it's like, okay, like that looks similar, and that's such an asset to have. Sometimes interior, he can just kind of get outmanned, like he did a few times against like Deron Payne, where it's like, well, okay, well, and like that's fine, like it's just gonna happen. But for what you need him to be, he's kind of been that. And the offensive line as a whole, I thought it had a better game today than it did, or Thursday than it did the last couple weeks. I thought it was struggling in the run block, um, which I think is that's nice to have like Mailata back for that. Um, but the offense, it's still slow to start. It's kind of been slow to start, even going back to the like Browns game, like since the bye. They had 5 drives against the Browns, they only scored 10 points. The Giants game, they started with 3 straight punts to open up the game. The Bengals game, they only had 3 drives, so like it was fine, but it was a weird half. They only had 3 drives. Then the Jags game, you only scored 10 points in the first half on like 5 drives, and the touchdown was generated from a muffed punt from Jacksonville. Or like you scored, but like your first handful of drives were not good. Where the biggest, the first touchdown came from a muff punt. Even the Dallas game, we saw that it started. The first half was just not good. It wasn't a good Jalen half. And then last week, Thursday, uh, Elliott missing kicks didn't help, obviously, because if he makes his kicks, this game's a lot more out of hand. However, drives kind of stalled. A couple Jalen missed reads, a couple like a Jahan Dotson drop, um, some penalties, getting too creative with play calls, trying to outthink yourselves, all that sort of stuff. It's still starting slow. But you know, once the Eagles drove down and kicked the field goal at the end of the first half, that drive and the rest of the drives, they score points on every single one. So it's their second half offense has been very, very good, much better, but their first half offense is still a bit worrisome. And I think it's a combination of a bit of sluggish play and then also some not great play calling early in the game. Like you look, their first drive is like perfect example. I thought it was starting off well. They were running AJ Brown slant patterns. They were running the ball effectively. Um, they were moving the ball nicely. Then a penalty hits you, kind of kills you. But on second and long, like I think sometimes in early games they get away a little bit from what just works consistently and they try to be a little more creative, which, I understand, but sometimes I think you just gotta kinda push yourself, especially in a short week situation, but, they got behind the sticks, then they tried to run, like, a fake screen deep pass that wasn't open, and Hurts got sacked or whatever, they had to throw it away. Whatever happened, another penalty pushed them back even further, and then they just, kinda conceded the drive, and Elliott missed the field goal, and it's like Devonta Smith had a drop, Jahan Dotson had a drop, then he misses Devonta Smith on the drag route, and it's just they get stuck in the mud. They get
Dude,
in
it
their own
was, to
way.
me, it felt like jitters. Like you're playing, like this is like your first. It was like a playoff type game
Playoff game feel,
atmosphere,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think both teams had jitters.
Mhm.
I think
Listen,
the Eagles.
it's a greasy divisional game, like, obviously, but you're telling me you can't see against the Ravens or against the Lions, in a potential playoff game that if the offense starts slow in the first half, and even if the defense like, what the biggest X factor in the slow offensive starts is the defense being able to be basically lights out and keep you not even just like, "Oh, keep you in the game," but, like, almost lead you to being ahead or, like, only down by 1 possession at the half as opposed to, like, you know, if you play Baltimore, you play Detroit,
Well, the
and those
Eagles.
are just
So
2
I
good
was. So when
offenses.
you. Well, I agree with you, Michael. I agree with you on
Like,
the.
God forbid they're just down, like, 17-3 at half or something, and we're like, "Shit," you know?
Yeah, I agree, Michael, with you as well with that statement. But here's the thing with the Eagles versus I think the Lions. I feel like if the Detroit Lions don't start out their first two drives with like points, like at
Mhm,
least 7 points, it affects them throughout the game.
mhm.
It's like if they don't get that like early juice, it like affects their whole like game script. Like I looked at their game against the Bucks very early in the year,
What was that, like, week
where they're
3,
just not like
4?
running all their like trick plays, and they're getting huge chunk yards.
Mhm,
Goff isn't playing well. That's a big thing with them, right? If he
mhm.
doesn't play well, their offense just
And like
goes.
like most offenses do, the
Well,
quarterback doesn't play well.
yeah, but I think my point
I get your point.
is the Eagles, when they don't start out well, they just, I don't know, like they course correct through the game.
This is
And
all it's all lending itself to
so then
some
if it's
brainwave.
like, I think if you're the Eagles, if I'm like Nick Sirianni, or like, I'm thinking to myself, shoot, if I can get like a touchdown on my first two drives, we should win the game, because we're gonna, what our coaches and our players are so smart, we can just adjust throughout the game and just counter what the opposing team is doing, which is what the Eagles have been doing on their win streak. And I think
Mhm.
even the Atlanta game, like if they just didn't have brain rot near the end of the game, they would have won.
Yeah, you look at excuse me. This you're lending yourself to my, like, tweet that we wanted to showcase with this take, talking about the Lions and stuff, and it's the fact that Jalen Hurts gets a lot of criticism, obviously, but, like, it's significantly more than a lot of quarterbacks get. You're hearing more about Jalen Hurts in a no turnover, home short week divisional win to put themselves in first place in the division and the number 2 seed overall in the NFC. You're hearing more about the inconsistencies of Jalen Hurts and how he isn't to be trusted, and Ryan Fitzpatrick saying on the post game, um, I think here, hold on, let me, yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you see that? You can see this, right?
Yep. Are you able to see?
Yeah,
I'm sharing our.
I sent it. You can see it, right? Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
yep.
Okay. So Ryan Fitzpatrick on Jalen Hurts. I think back to you saying this Eagles team's going back to the Super Bowl, let's talk about Jalen Hurts. They won. His stats look okay, but I walk out of this game with not a ton of confidence the way he's playing right now. And it's like, I, well, what are we talking about here? Jalen Hurts, he missed a couple reads. Like,
Michael, he got concussed.
he probably got concussed, missed a couple reads, and they win the game, and they win the game pretty handedly otherwise. And he played fairly well in the second half. He was like 8 of 9 for like 100 something yards, was pretty good. Jared Goff throws 5 interceptions on Sunday Night Football against the Texans, and they win the game. And all you can hear is, I mean, the Lions, they're just finding a way to win. They're winning in all different ways, and this is why they're a Super Bowl contender, yada, yada, yada. Are you serious? The quarterback threw 5 interceptions. I don't care how the 5 interceptions came.
Yeah,
You
it's
throw
because
5 picks, you deserve warranted criticism.
Michael, in America, we love to tear people down and then build them back up, which is the Jared Goff story. Jared Goff was cheeks his last year with the Rams. He gets
Yeah, and
sent to Detroit,
you're
and
just
then
allowed to
Ben
be
Johnson fixes
fair.
him. It doesn't fit the narrative when he goes out and looks like bad Jared Goff. The reason why he got traded from the
Yeah.
Rams.
Jared Goff's a nice quarterback, but we can't fool ourselves here and think Jared Goff is some like super elite quarterback. Like he's just prone to those games. He kind of is. He always has been, and he always will
Jared
be.
Goff cost them the opportunity to go to the Super Bowl in the playoffs. They had
Right.
their foot. They had San Francisco like under their foot, ready to put them away, and Jared Goff just choked.
Right. So, it's just frustrating, I think, as a fan to hear that. And what I like about Jalen Hurts, and not to make it such a dig at Goff or whatever, because it's again, I don't dislike Jared Goff, but like it just bothers me, is that everyone's saying how inconsistent, not a great game. Jalen Hurts had a bad first half against Dallas. He turned it around, had a great second half. Jalen Hurts had a sluggish start, not a great start to his standards against Washington, and then turned it around and had a really nice second half. Which, by the way, like if my quarterback's bad games where everyone's gonna be up in arms like, oh, he's not playing too well, is missing a couple reads, taking a sack, and like whatever. Instead of like, it's not like he threw 3 picks in the first half and then he bounced back from it, and it's like, "Oh, whatever." He missed he missed Devonta Smith on the drag route. He didn't throw it, and he tried to run, and he took a sack. Like, he threw the 50-50 ball to Devonta Smith in the end zone when he had kinda Goddard open underneath. He missed A.J. Brown on that 3rd down where he was kinda backpedaling to his left, and he was open, and he just totally missed him, and it's like, those, in my mind, were his 3 worst plays on Thursday, and if those are your worst plays in a winning effort that was a dominant winning effort, what are we complaining about here? It's not like he had a slow first half and then compounded upon it, starting off the second half with an interception, and it was like, "Oh boy, Jalen's playing like garbage today." Like, no, he's shown the ability. Jalen Sirianni talks about resiliency all the time, whatever. He's shown the ability that a slow first half, he doesn't let it spiral, he kinda snaps himself out of it. Like you said, John, the Eagles, like the Lions, if they don't get on track, sometimes that could lead them to faulting. Obviously, they weaseled their way around and won the Texans game, but the Eagles, like you said, they coursed through their struggles, and it's exactly what they did on Thursday. The offense, it was moving the ball, but it was stalling, and Elliott was missing kicks, so it was looking a lot worse. But then they coursed their way through, and the offense broke out and had a great second half and was dominant the rest of the game. Um, and I think a lot of that is a testament to the quarterback, that when things start struggling, things start not being on the same page, they can't get out of their own way, he doesn't collapse under upon he doesn't collapse with it. He doesn't drag himself down with the rest of the team struggling or with the whole offense slowing down. He doesn't just fold. Brings it back out. He steps up, and it helps to bring the team along with him and turn into a good offensive second half. And it's why they've been such a good offensive second half team the whole season, because they've had slow starts pretty much all year, but they work their way out of it. They work their way through it, and him not compounding on some early game mistakes, which aren't even, again, I'm saying the word, like, I'm saying incorrect plays, not bad plays, because they were wrong reads and, like, one missed throw, not a turnover, not, you know, taking a sack that takes you out of field goal range. Like, it's we're not removing points off the board with these mistakes that he's making, you know what I'm saying? It just it's frustrating that the way he gets talked about in this regard,
Well,
um,
I feel
when
like
it's
a lot of I
unjustified.
think this is a common narrative, especially with these major, um, like Fox Sports. I think ESPN as well is because they don't have a foothold in the Philadelphia market because our sports media is driven mostly by the local channels,
Mhm.
right? That they just crap on Philadelphia because they don't have like a foothold there to
Yeah,
just like prop them up, right?
yeah.
Um, well, and like some of the brain rot, just stupid takes. Like, listen, Michael, like Kirk Benkert, who people listening to this are like, who the hell is that?
Kurt Becker.
Who the hell, like, yeah, like who the hell is that? Like, what? Like, I think does he work for Sleeper?
I think I don't know who he
He's a
works
YouTuber. He's
for.
a football like
He's a
influencer.
for he's
Let's
a
say,
former NF he's a former NFL player. He
yeah, he's a
played
former NFL player.
he's
Like
a
you're a
former,
former
like,
NFL player. He
no,
held a clipboard for like a year.
alright. I mean, listen, he's a former, like, 3rd string practice squad quarterback that, you know, took his whatever. He's a YouTuber now, does, like, film breakdowns,
Yeah,
does
he plays Madden
cool
and calls
Madden
all these
stuff.
audibles to exploit the game like he thinks he's like Sean McVay.
Yeah, like, he applies what he's learned in real life football to Madden, and, like, when he's doing that, I think it's pretty cool, but, like, when he starts throwing around some takes, I think he loses it a little bit.
So yeah, he's like he just says dumb crap. You know,
Mhm.
like what, the tush push?
Yeah, exactly. Well, everyone complaining about it, but yes.
You know, and then you brought up Ryan Fitzpatrick. Dan Orlovsky, or sorry, Dan Orlovsky, excuse me.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you watched the Pat McAfee show. I think that's the most watched like football program.
I see clips of it. I don't go out of my way and watch it,
So
but I see
so Pat
clips.
McAfee, um, so one of the people in the Pat McAfee show, like one of his like producers who like
Mhm,
talks on the show, his name's Ty Schmidt. He does
mhm.
a dead on impression of Nick Sirianni,
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
and they actually had Nick Sirianni on Friday.
Mhm,
And Pat McAfee is very much like I won't say a homer, but he's very positive towards everybody. He doesn't like single one person out like
mhm.
ESPN does with Jalen Hurts and talks crap on him.
Right.
He kind of made an observation where he was like, oh, that curse word Nick Sirianni is like, how are they winning despite him being a complete idiot? Kind of
Yeah.
his
Yeah, I
his
saw that clip. That
his
was good.
take. But he's very much like positive on Jalen. He's like, oh, another turnover free game. He managed the offense well. We see
It's
when he's just
true.
managing the offense and maybe not having to do everything all by himself, that the Eagles are like a better offense. Which, wow,
Mhm,
how about that, Michael? When a quarterback doesn't need to do everything on his own and has other avenues, the offense has other avenues, Saquon Barkley, to
mhm,
just move the ball and get points. How amazing is it that, the quarterback's job is easier
mhm,
when he doesn't have to play hero ball every single game, which is what we were saying for the last 2 years.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, it's very
All right,
frustrating
I
because
gotta share
that's
this brain rot tweet, then we'll get into the picks because we're running a
yeah.
little behind. But this is, and actually a good quarterback having a really stupid take. Kurt Warner. So let me just share my screen. Let me know when you see it.
Yep, it's there.
Kurt Warner. This was his take for the game. This was like his take midway through the game when I think this is when Jalen must have had the
Jalen
touchdown.
yeah, he had his push touchdown.
It just means so much more to a running back's career to score rushing touchdowns. Kind of bums me out that Saquon gets Philadelphia down to the 1 inch line and Jalen gets the easy touchdown. 3 exclamation points. IDK, I know it's just about winning, but just seems kind of lame knowing how running backs are measured. Just me? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just you,
Kurt.
Kurt Warner.
Because, like, Jesus
You're
Christ, dude, no one in 10 years is gonna look back on Saquon Barkley's career and be like, "You know, his touchdown numbers were a bit low in comparison." And the
he's on
fact that he
pace to
has
score like 18 touchdowns.
the fact that he has all these more yards than all these players, but not the touchdowns. I think I'm gonna hold it again. Like, no, especially when everyone's gonna be like, Jalen Hurts got a lot. Like Jalen Hurts has how many tush push touchdowns this year? Or what was the stat? It was like Saquon Barkley has had like 8 or 9 plays that have gotten him tackled at the 1 yard line, and of those 9 plays, the next play has all been the tush push, and 7 of them have been touchdowns, and, like, the other 2 were like, they ran the tush push the next play and scored anyways. Like, it was one of those, like, they get closer on the tush push, and they do it again and score. So, I don't know. Like, I guess, sure, should we get Bar who cares? It just does not matter, and it's for someone like him, it's such a weird
I could
thing
tell
to
you why
complain about.
I could tell you why he tweeted that. You want to know why I think he
Why is
tweeted that?
Marshall Faulk, like, has so many
I
touchdowns?
think no, I think Kurt Warner tweeted that because the biggest knock on Kurt Warner's career is that he's only was good when he had like 2 Hall of Fame caliber wide receivers. Like, think
Sure.
about it. When he
No,
was with
yeah, no, I
the
know.
Rams, he had 2 Hall of Fame receivers. When he was with the Cardinals, like, I think Anquan Bolden and I think Larry Fitzgerald's going to be a first ballot surefire Hall of Famer. If he's
Right.
not, the voting is something's wrong with the
Oh, yeah, he's a
sports
Hall yeah,
writers.
yeah, no, I
Anquan
know, yeah.
Bolden might not be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but
No, but he's really, really good, yeah.
he should be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion.
Mhm,
Yeah, and I think maybe him being compared to Hurts in a way, like, oh, Hurts is like Kurt Warner. I don't know. I mean, Kurt Warner. I mean, keep in mind, Kurt Warner also doesn't like Philadelphia because his son transferred out of Temple to Rice, where he's been playing like dog shit, and
mhm,
people are dunking on EJ Warner, his son, for leaving Temple for
mhm.
NIL.
Right, right. No, yeah, I mean, it's a weird take from a guy like him. It feels so, like,
Petty.
unimportant. Like, I don't think anyone's if they don't give, like, Saquon Barkley Offensive Player of the Year and they cite, "Oh, he didn't have as many touchdowns as Derrick Henry," like, I think we're losing it a little bit. Like, I think that kinda
I think the Eagles are the only team where if they blow out another team, people find ways to nitpick them on how they lost or how they won versus like when the Lions just demolish someone, no one's like, man, Jameson Williams just wasn't involved enough in that game.
yeah, no, it's frustrating. Like, the Texans win for the Lions would have been the perfect week for everyone to be like, "Oh, maybe we should pump the brakes on the Lions." Like, Jared Goff can very easily, like, derail this team with just one bad game at the wrong time. And, like, that's just true. It's true for any freaking quarterback, any team that has, playoff Super Bowl aspirations, even the Bills. If Josh Allen has a bad game, guess what's happening to the Bills in the playoffs? They're probably losing, and it's gonna be his fault. No one's gonna think Josh Allen sucks for it, but it
How
just is
come
what it
no one
is.
ripped Josh Allen how come no one was critiquing Josh Allen when he got concussed versus the Texans and he couldn't play well because he was basically was concussed. Like, you saw him he slammed his head on the turf. His face was beat red. He looked like he had no clue where he was. They had to take smelling salts on the sidelines to basically wake him up.
Mhm.
And he looked like complete crap. Like, remember that? And everyone ripped the play caller because they're like, Josh
No,
Allen
listen,
was
eh,
clearly concussed. Why are you
it's
making
just
him throw
frustrating.
3 times from his own
It's
1 yard line?
frustrating, and it's just yeah, I don't know. It's very inconsistent arguments, and we could really get down to why it happens because certain quarterbacks get more criticism than others, but I don't know. The first game we have on to the picks. We're going long here. So the Packers and the Bears, nice NFC North, historical matchup, all that sort of stuff. So the Bears are 6-point underdogs at home, coming off of like peak they're losing it. They fired Shane Waldron, which they should have never hired him in the first place. Everyone with half a brain knew that. They like rushed to hire him too for no reason. It was really strange. Even Keenan Allen said that he could tell that, like, he basically said he knew that Shane Waldron wasn't going to work out from the way that he handled training camp. He's like, we're in training camp, and all the little things he just kind of lets go, and it's like, ah, it's fine. Like, we'll get it when it matters, sort of thing. Like, whether it's drop passes, whether it's not running your routes in the right spot, or not playing through the whistle, sort of thing. And it's like Shane Waldron would kind of just throw those, no big deal, no big deal, no big deal, and like it's quite literally translated to the game. Routes are run very lackadaisically by all the receivers involved. Timing's all off. Like it's just ugly. So yeah, Bears were like at the peak of their dysfunction last week. Maybe they have some juice with an interim offensive coordinator just to kind of snap themselves out of it. We'll see. This is a tough spot for them. They had what looked like some playoff
Is Jordan Love going to
aspirations.
play?
Yeah, Jordan Love's playing. Definitely, he is playing. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. So they're 6-point favorites. He practiced fully. He has no injury designation. He's playing. Yeah. So the Packers are 6-point favorites on the road. I think they're coming out of the bye. I think I'm going to take the Bears to keep this one close. I think the Packers are going to win, but I'm going to take the Bears to cover the 6 points on the road, or sorry, at home. Um, I think their offense isn't going to be as feeble as it looked last week. I don't love this Packers defense, and I think that you know the team should feel a little bit of a sense of pride to help you know step up in a way that they haven't been able to all year. They definitely would have had some more wins because their defense has played fairly well to keep them in games. You think of the Hail Mary game against Washington. It's like, you know, score more than 15 points and you're for the 13 points and you win a game. New England, score more than 20 points and you win a game. Like just things that should not be that difficult when you look at the caliber of offense, like at least the skill wise that this team has. And I don't think like I think they started the year with calling a bunch of big play things, like almost like expecting Caleb Williams to come into the league and be slinging it all over the field with all this elite stuff. And then I think they told him to like reel it in and don't force things. And that's why part of the reason he takes so many sacks and he despite the fact that he hasn't thrown an interception in quite some time, but he takes so many sacks, I think the team has told him to stop trying to force things. And honestly, I think if they want a better shot at their offense being better, like Theo tweeted this, and just Caleb Williams needs to throw more interceptions. He needs to try things. He needs to push the ball down the field a little bit more. This offense is so just awful and boring that if you're telling him to just be so uber safe with the football and he's just going to keep taking sacks, you'll never see any sort of success. Where I'll take your chances with the receivers you have down the field to make a play where it could end in an interception instead of telling him to just kind of hold it and eat it and take a sack. So I'm hoping that the Bears offense lets him off the leash a little bit, lets him just try to sling it around a bit, and has a little more juice all in all with the new OC. So I'm taking the Bears +6.
I'm taking the Packers, laying the 6 points on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Big points in a divisional game. I'm not falling for the bait, Michael. This Bears team right now is, if it wasn't for the Dallas Cowboys, I would
Mm-hmm.
say they're the most dysfunctional team in the NFL. I mean,
Yeah,
you have Tyson Bajan's father. Did you see this on Reddit?
I did see that.
Tyson
Yeah.
Bad Secret. I like his nickname is Tyson Secret Bajan Man. Uh, Tyson Bajan's dad is leaking to the media that Bears players want Tyson Bajan to play over Caleb Williams. Like
Which
Michael,
is
like
just very untrue.
I mean, it's so untrue, but like
Yeah.
that's like it's stuff like that where like that's when you know everyone has it out for Matt Eberflus. He should be fired. He should have been fired weeks ago.
I mean, he shouldn't have.
The team quit on him last week playing against the New England Patriots, who, ever since their
stink.
coach called them soft, has been playing much better, I guess, more Patriot, I don't know, football, right?
Yeah, but like the fact of the matter is the Patriots blow, and
The
like
Patriots are a bottom 3 team.
like Drake May be damned, that offense still sucks. Like, and May's playing actually well. He's dragged this offense.
Yeah, Drake
to
May
a
is like
decent team.
2020 Justin Herbert
Without
without Keenan Allen.
with like a somewhat like a significantly worse team somehow. Like it's really really bad. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Bears like they're well on their way to their third straight regime of rookie quarterback, first time head coach that they are going to be fired. Not first time, but rookie quarterback head coach that they are going to be firing the second year of the rookie quarterback. Like it's so stupid. They had John Fox when they drafted Mitchell Trubisky, and they fired John Fox in year 2 of Mitchell Trubisky's career. Then they drafted Justin Fields, they hired Matt Nagy in year 2 of Mitchell Trubisky's career. Then they draft Justin Fields. They give him Matt Nagy for the first year, and then they fire Matt Nagy after Justin Fields' rookie year. They go ahead and they hire Matt Eberflus for the Justin Fields era, and then they draft Caleb Williams. And we're seeing Caleb Williams play his rookie year under Matt Eberflus, and guess who's going to get fired in the offseason? Matt Eberflus.
This is the curse of Lovie Smith when he went 10-6 and got fired.
Yeah, it's just stupid stuff from the Bears.
Well, we have a 100-year-old person in Virginia McCaskey.
It was just so there was no reason to keep him this year. There was just no reason. Anyways, next game we have is the Browns and the Saints. This is just a nasty one. Everyone's loading up on the Saints coming off a win with their interim head coach. Definitely their interim voodoo last week against Atlanta.
I feel like a Taysom Hill touchdown, Pander touchdown is like a complete virtual lock.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the Browns, and obviously they're not great. They're coming off a bye. But I don't know, like the Saints needed everything to go their way in order to even get their interim head coach juice win. Like it wasn't like they played that well. They hit a couple big
Falcons are
plays.
A good team, though. This is not a good team, but I see
my
where you're
point
going.
is that they hit like the
Saints. With this, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Saints hit their big plays with MVS, and like that was kind of it on offense. They didn't really do anything else after that, and like the Falcons offense couldn't get out of their own way. It wasn't a great Kirk day. I don't know. I just wasn't too inspired. I'm taking the Browns -1.5 on the road. I think Nick Chubb's going to run all over this team, and I trust that the Browns defense, even though the Falcons defense did a fairly good job, I don't think the Browns defense will give up the massive plays that they hit last week, or it's just not going to go their way. So I'm taking the Browns -1.5.
Yeah, I feel like this is a tale of two quarterbacks. One guy's the most ultra conservative quarterback in the NFL, Derek Carr, like captain check down,
right?
And then you have Jameis.
Yeah, he's going to push it.
I'm taking the Browns. I feel like this is going to be, you're going to see good Jameis today.
Yeah, coming out of the bye.
I think you're going to see good Jameis, and I think it's going to be a close game.
I do too.
I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to take the Browns as well, Michael.
Yeah, I do think that Nick Chubb's going to have a big day. It'll be like his breakout. The first game that'll look like, okay, Nick Chubb looks back. Next game we have the Rams and the Patriots. Yeah, gross. The Rams coming off a brutal home loss to the Dolphins, who were reeling. Could have been a big win for them for their division hopes, honestly. But obviously their playoff ones too. Rams are only 4-point favorites on the road. Some interesting lines this week, and that's probably the most interesting.
It feels like bait.
It feels interesting. Feels like, I don't know, like people are still loading up on the Rams. you look at New England, the way they won last week, they won it off the back of Bears dysfunction. Um, I think the Rams coming off a tough loss the way they did to Minnesota definitely feels like, especially with the Eagle game coming up next week. It looks like the Rams, like they know their season's hanging in the balance, and if they looked at the 3 upcoming games with Dolphins, Patriots, Eagles, and we're like, okay, we got to win 2 of them, and you already squandered the Dolphins one. I think it's a bit of a panic, especially with that Eagle game coming up. I think they really, really need to win today, if they want to have any sort of playoff hopes. And I think, Christian Gonzalez is an incredible corner, but you got 2 good Rams receivers and 1 Cooper Kupp playing primarily out of the slot. So I'm thinking Kupp's going to have a pretty nice day. I'm taking the Rams -4.
I'm taking the Rams as well. Yeah, I'm taking the Rams -4. Patriots right now, Michael, like they're obviously trash, but at the same time, they're in the really nice position where you have the quarterback. So when you go into the draft, there's a highly strong possibility you're gonna get a like franchise, not like a non QB franchise type player, right?
Cornerstone, yeah. Whether that's a
Cornerstone type
tackle
player.
or
I feel like the Patriots are sort of engineering a tank, you know, right
Mhm.
now. So I don't think it would behoove them to win. But man, if my concern is the Rams lose this game, and then everyone who is like talking up this Rams game is like, oh my god, this Rams game is going to be so difficult for the Eagles. Like, not
You
really.
you
There's
can't,
no
yeah, you
excuse to
can't.
lose to them in
No,
LA.
no,
We're going
no,
to
you
take
can't.
over their stadium, Michael. It's going to be
They better
mostly Eagles
listen,
fans there. I don't even want to hear that.
they better win, they have to
Like, oh
next
my
week.
god, it's a trap game because we play the Ravens the week after. Like,
Mhm.
the Cowboy game was a trap game. What did the Eagles do to the Cowboys?
They handled it very well.
Like,
Um,
just give. Oh Jesus, yeah. You know, I'm taking the
speaking
Rams. Taking the
speaking
Rams
of
here.
the Ravens are on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Definitely the highlight, the best game of the 1 o'clock slate. A couple of AFC North powerhouses, couple of AFC powerhouses as it stands. Um, Winner will lead the AFC North currently. This Ravens are 3-point road favorites against the Steelers. Steelers coming off a nice road victory against Washington, and are the Ravens coming off their Thursday night uh, fireworks show win against the Cincinnati Bengals. So this is a tough one. The Steelers Ravens, they tend to always split. If anything, it honestly has been favoring Pittsburgh to win both games more than anything, even when it seems like the Ravens are the better team. Which I think they are the better team. They obviously have the much better quarterback. They have the they have the offensive advantage. I like their receiver room now. I don't love it, but I like it for what they try to do. Obviously, their run game's the strength, and Lamar is the strength, spreading it around to everybody. The Ravens' weakness is their pass defense. They have the worst pass defense in the NFL, and Russell Wilson has looked honestly pretty damn good since taking over as the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh. Not fully Seattle Russ is back, but it's as good as he's looked since
Well, no,
he's left.
he's been cast in the Ryan Tannehill role of the
Yes. We
Steelers
we talked
offense,
listen, we talked about this,
and
that's what
he's
they were
a
doing with
better
Fields.
quarterback than Ryan
And
Tannehill ever was.
yeah, this is what we talked about early in the season, that the Steelers are making Justin Fields like Ryan Tannehill, and it's why they were winning games because he wasn't making mistakes. And insert Russell Wilson, who's better than Justin Fields. Now that offense, the same sort of thing, is now elevated. So yeah, it's as good as he's looked since he's left the Seahawks. You got to feel good about it. The Ravens have coming off like extra rest. They have like their mini bikes. They played last Thursday. You'd like to think they'd come out, they're going to be super prepared for this. This is the big game on the road. It's a tough. I'm real torn here. I'm real torn. I think I'm just gonna take Pittsburgh +3 on at home, and even if the Ravens win, maybe they're down 1, they kick a field goal and win by 2 sort of thing. So I'm gonna take Pittsburgh because you look at how the public is handling this. Majority of the spread bets are on the Steelers. Almost 70% are picking the Steelers +3, but then on the money line, 70% are taking Baltimore. So if you're taking the spread, people are taking Pittsburgh. If you're taking them straight up, a lot of people are taking Baltimore. And I think I align myself with the public there. I'm taking Pittsburgh.
This is a really tough game, Michael,
Mhm.
because Lamar just the only defensive mind that has Lamar Jackson's number is Mike Tomlin. I mean,
Yeah.
he's 2-4 in his career against the Steelers.
I'm sure those numbers aren't too pretty.
Most interceptions the most interceptions he's thrown is against the Browns with 8. The next is the Steelers is 7, but he has 16 touchdowns against the Browns, 4 against the Steelers.
Ooh, my goodness.
And Lamar, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, let's be like, we talk about Jalen Hurts getting a lot of criticism. Like, if Lamar Jackson throws like 5 touchdowns today, like
Yeah.
with his 24 touchdowns versus 2 picks, like he's the MVP. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you look at yeah, and, like, even just to further this, Lamar is 1-3 against the Steelers in his career, um, and he's 17-5 against the Bengals and Browns. And it's not like through his career, the Steelers have been great. Like, they honestly haven't. They've been more mediocre than anything else. So, yeah. The Bengals have more playoff wins than the Steelers do in Lamar Jackson's career. Um, and Lamar's pick numbers are inflated against the Browns because he had that 4 interception game way back when, if we remember a few years ago.
I feel like this is a different Lamar.
Oh, I agree. I think Lamar is absolutely. I mean, Lamar's incredible. We know he's the MVP, but sometimes team
I'm
just has
taking
your
the
number.
Steelers. I'm taking the Steelers because they're great against the spread, and like I don't know, like they're. This is probably the most even we've seen the Steelers and the Ravens in like where you're like, wow, the Steelers may be a credible threat in like several years. I'm
Yeah,
taking the
this
Steelers because
is.
they're at home, they're getting points. I don't trust this dude. This Ravens team in the fourth quarter. Can we just talk about how bad they are? Like, if
Yeah,
it
no,
wasn't for Lamar Jackson, they're probably not even a playoff team.
they collapse. Even if you take away Derrick Henry, things are probably a lot harder too. Like it's just those two guys have really done the most they can to carry this team. Their defense has been super unreliable. But yeah, this Steelers team, it's definitely. I think it's probably the best one since like Antonio Brown left, since Le'Veon Bell left. Like probably they're like the best Steelers team since they lost to the Jags in that divisional game, which I think was the last game of Ben, Brown, and Bell. So yeah, like you look at those, the 11-0 Steelers in 2020, but everyone knew they were disgusting frauds. This Steelers team, they they look better. Russ looks good. That connection between Wilson and Pickens looks legit, and I think Pickens is gonna have a big day. So next game we have the Raiders and the Dolphins. Everyone's loading up on the Dolphins. Coming off a win, they, their season's on life support. They'd have to almost run the table to kind of get themselves in a spot, or at least win the next like 4 games
I
to
don't know.
get them.
I'm rooting for Mike McDaniel, and even to a certain extent, like I don't know, man. I feel bad for Tua. Like I know you hate his guts and want him to burn in a fiery pit of hell for how
I
mediocre he is,
I
but
don't I
like
don't feel bad, honestly. Like the way Tua talks, like not saying anyone deserves what it
he
is, and
seems
maybe
kind
the
of
Dolphins.
arrogant. But you're at this.
Yes, and I think it's the CTE starting. To be completely honest with you, I
No,
think
I think
he's.
it's just probably he just reads his phone way too much. He might need to not go on
I
social
guess, but
media.
it's like people say to him, like, It's like when people ask him about, like, the voicing legitimate concern about his head, and, like, he'll never learn. Like, he throws the pick, and he dives at the dude's knees straight with his head, and he gets kneed in the side of the head, and he's like, "Huh, I shouldn't have thrown the pick." And he's like, "But, I'd try to make the same play." It's like, "What are you doing, dude? Like, what are you talking about?" Like, this is your life in your hands that you're just kind of whatever. Speaking of, like, injuries, I guess, Tyreek Hill has torn ligaments in his, wrist, and he cites it to his arrest, which I could believe it. Um, and it's partially like, you think about it, he's like, "This is the first time I've been hurt," and if you think about Tyreek Hill's career, I mean, can you think of a time he's been hurt? Like, not really. He's always been a guy that's just been pretty healthy, so
I don't know.
he's
Didn't he
battling
also say
through
when
it.
he celebrated the touchdown when Odell Beckham landed on him, like in the celebration, that also hurt his
Um,
back?
yeah, but it's like, it's his
I feel like he
wrist,
just
it's
jokes
the big.
around a lot
The
too.
wrist is legit, like, that's a legit injury because there was some dude on Twitter that, like, hours before he popped up on the injury report tweeted, like, "Don't ask me how I know this, but someone I know overheard an airport phone call between Tyreek Hill and his agent, uh, talking about a wrist injury that he may get, like, he's considering getting season-ending surgery for." And then it comes out that he pops up on the injury report with the wrist injury the next day, the few hours later. Then on Monday Night Pregame, Lisa Salter says, "Tyreek Hill told me he has torn ligaments in his wrist," and it's like, that guy was onto something. So he's dealing with an injury. The Raiders are still pitiful. One
I
of the
think
worst
the
teams in the league.
what the Raiders doing, a sucking for Shador. Is that what's
Yeah,
going on?
I don't know. There's 7.5 point underdogs in Miami. This feels like a spot where the Dolphins, everything kind of looks normal for once. I think they kind of put up big numbers on offense. They really ride Devon Achane, and get themselves a win. So I'm taking the Dolphins.
I'm taking the Dolphins as well. I think with the injury to Tyreek Hill, now that Tua's back, you see Jalen Waddle's kind of emerging right now again as like, oh
Mhm.
wow, Jalen Waddle, like yeah, he's
He's
still pretty
good.
good. Yeah, he's still
Yeah.
pretty good. Yeah, dude, I think with the Raiders, man, I joke about the tank. They're just so bad. I don't think they need to tank. They're just trash.
No, they're just not good.
They're just not good. So
So
yeah,
you're
I'm
taking
taking
the
the Dolphins.
Dolphins?
Yeah, I'm
Alright,
taking the Dolphins.
next game we have is
Ooh, how was
what are
this
you
originally -4?
what are you oohing about?
This was originally -4.
I think sometimes the open line is, like, what this opened at before the season, I swear, because, like, look at, I don't know, like, Vikings-Titans, that was only opened up at a 1-point spread, then anyways, it's weird. So anyways, -14 at home. The Detroit Lions they're 7-2 against the spread, 8-1 straight up. The Jags, talk about season on life support, that is what the Jags are. They they're just not good. Who did they had every way and possibility for a Mac Jones led team to win the game against the Vikings, but it's Mac Jones, so he's really bad. But Sam Darnold was feeding them interceptions around the goal line to keep them in that
Oh,
game. They were
the Jaguars are in full. They're in the driver's seat to getting the number 1 overall pick. I think for the third time in 5 years, which I don't know if that's a record.
not ideal, I have to say.
Like I'm trying to think. Like I don't think the Lions or the Browns
Not
ever
that.
accomplished that at any point.
No. So I'm I'm taking the Lions, honestly. Like, I know that they're probably gonna just throw their helmets on the field, but I still think that's enough to win a game, like
No, well, no. I think this is the Lions. I think
31-13 or something.
knowing the Lions, like after the Jared Goff 5 pick disaster class that he had, they're
Mhm.
gonna just draw up every weirdo they're gonna listen when they play these bad teams, Michael. That's when they're gonna be throwing touchdowns to Dan Skipper and Panay Sewell, and they're gonna have like uh, Khalif Raymond throw a touchdown pass to Amon Ra, just sheer like
Just because.
yeah, and because they can, right? Because they can do it. Because they can do it. They can do it
Yeah.
because the Jags are trash. Give me the Detroit Lions laying
All right.
14 points today.
Next game we have is the Vikings Titans. Like alluded to, the Vikings are 6-point favorites on the road against Tennessee. Bloom might be off the rose a bit with Darnold. Was starting the year really nice. Looked good for most of the season, but the last couple weeks has not looked great. Just you know, he's clearly played himself into a spot where he can be a pretty effective bridge quarterback. Deserves to be in the league at least as a backup for a while, but maybe hasn't necessarily graduated to Baker Mayfield yet, where he can go be a starter somewhere and be like a frisky playoff team maybe. I don't think he's there yet. We'll obviously see how the year finishes out where the Vikings, for their sake, hopefully don't fully collapse and miss the playoffs, but if they do make the playoffs, they will be
Sorry,
perhaps that
I am.
frisky playoff team.
As you just mentioned Baker, I am going to pull up his game log from 2023 to see if there is a Goff-ish trend. And yeah, you're exactly right. I got Baker's game log pulled up. So like from week 11 till like now, like he was on a massive heater. I mean, he also didn't throw more than 2
Who
interceptions in a
who who are you
game.
talking about?
Baker last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's there yet, Darnold.
Yeah, and it's really bizarre that like since TJ Hawkinson is now back in the lineup, that you'd think that would help him out. When in reality, his stats have nosedived since he's came back. And I'm not blaming TJ Hawkinson
No, I
for
just think Darnold's been playing worse. Like he's making bad decisions again. He
yeah,
was
he's like there's plays where he's rolled out and he is throwing it into triple coverage.
he's making bad decisions. He's making bad decisions and he's making bad throws. You know, forcing some things or just kind of straight up missing. Uh,
I honestly I think it could be contractually related where now it's like him and his agent might not maybe mainly his agent is like maybe like thinking like where he's going to go after the season if he's going to stay in Minnesota. Is he going to be getting a huge contract like a Baker contract?
okay.
And then he's just dropping. He's just not focused on
Oh.
well, like
Yeah. I mean, we'll see how it finishes. I'd like in my mind today. I think they're going to handle and have a nice win against the Titans. I'm taking Minnesota minus the 6 points. Jefferson's like 55 yards away from passing Torrey Holt in like all-time receiving yards.
that's crazy.
I think that he I think he's gonna have a big game. He was supposed to have like a big game last week, and things just kind of got stuck in their way. Feels like he hasn't scored a touchdown in forever. Um, the Vikings need this. They need this to get back on track, and I think like this is a pretty although the Jags were a great matchup to get back on track. I think the Titans, their run defense is pretty stingy, but I think their pass D is not as good, and I think this is still a nice opportunity to get things going through the air. So I'm taking Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm taking Minnesota as well. The Tennessee Titans are 1-8 against the spread this season. I feel like this is a good get back game for their defense, which has been giving up a lot of points recently.
Yeah, has not been
And
as
like
killer.
Will Levis, I believe, is starting today.
It is Will
Yeah,
Levis.
we're gonna see.
So you're taking Minnesota.
Yeah, we're gonna see Will Levis disaster class today.
Mm.
That's my
Next
prediction.
game, final game of the 1 o'clocks, Colts Jets. Um, God, the Jets are 4-point favorites Uh, I mean, the Jets are just the worst, like they stink.
Do you want to know how dysfunctional the Jets are?
Mm,
Can I give you like another example on top of the hundreds of examples we've seen so far this year?
sure.
So the Jets this week, because their defense has been cheeks
Oh,
since
yeah.
they fired Robert Saleh.
Which, like,
Well,
they shouldn't have fired him.
Ahmad Gardner, he's not sauce anymore because he sucks. Let's just be
Mhm.
real. He's bad. He's the most overrated defensive player in professional football. Is Ahmad Sauce Gardner.
Oh man.
Um, he was bitching about them watching tape on missed tackles, saying that they don't need to watch tape on missed tackles because they're not missing tackles, or like whatever, or like basically like, oh, we're not like we're an elite defense, right?
Yeah, I mean, the way
He
I heard
leads
it,
the league in missed tackles.
yeah, no, it's the dysfunction of the Jets is seeping into even their most talented players that felt like bright spots. Felt like they got the next guy, all that sort of thing, and even his brain's been poisoned by the Jets' grossness. The Jets got absolutely railed by Arizona last week, just on all fronts of it. And the Cardinals have not a great defense, and the Jets' offense was just non-existent. It seems as though it's gotten even more incompetent as Devontae Adams got there. I don't know, man. It's really really bad, and Rodgers just does not look great, and their offensive line still isn't one. It's just the Jets are just brutal. I'm taking the Colts +4. Anthony Richardson's playing today after Joe Flacco absolutely sucked brutally last week. He was so many ways terrible. Um, you look at Flacco
Is
and it's
Jonathan
like,
Taylor back?
yeah, Taylor's playing. You look at Flacco and obviously, he's not good, and, like, Richardson is also not good at the moment, but what Richardson at, like, the bare minimum does is just adds a running threat that makes their offense just slightly more dynamic, where, a shotgun handoff from Joe Flacco, there isn't even an ounce of threat that he's pulling that thing and running, but with Richardson in there is an ounce of threat, so in both ways is he gonna help out the run game, and the Jets are just terrible. I can't trust them to do anything. I'm taking the Colts +4 on the road.
I'm taking the Colts as well, Michael. I think what the big thing for the Colts offense with
Mhm,
Richardson, you mentioned the running threat.
mhm.
Dude, the Jets can't tackle. Jets can't tackle.
No, they can't.
I mean, Shane Steichen's got to draw up easy plays yet for Anthony Richardson just to build his confidence up. Like, um, I mean, you look at how Bryce Young's been playing the last couple weeks, Michael. I'm not saying he's playing great, but like he's playing well
He's
enough where
playing a
you're
little
like,
fun. Like he's enjoying football again.
well,
Like,
no, it's just like, oh, he's moving the ball down the field. We get
mhm,
near the goal line, we hit it to Chuba Hubbard, he gets a touchdown, and like, oh my god, we're like looking like a real football team.
mhm.
Like he's looking like the first overall pick. Like this is the best he's ever looked. And I think with Richardson, like I also think that you know uh, he's got to respond. And like the Jets
Yeah.
blow. Like
Mhm,
this would be a big confidence booster for him
mhm.
if they
Yeah,
win today. You know,
yeah. Next game we have the Seahawks and the 49ers. The Seahawks have been a very frustrating team all season.
they're
They've been very
soft,
soft on defense, and their offense, I mean, has been without DK Metcalf for a few weeks. It's just not been good.
but JSN has been going bonkers since he's been.
Yes, and you get DK Metcalf back today, which is huge because if we remember on Thursday night, DK Metcalf, uh, he had like 80 yards and 2 touchdowns wiped away from an offensive penalty and like a toe landing out of bounds. And it was just like, he was very close to having one of the best receiver games of the
It's because
year
he's the
against
most bet on one of the most bet on receivers in
right.
football, probably.
And you look at San Francisco, obviously they had McCaffrey back last week, which he didn't have a great game, but his impact alone is just you feel it. It's so
I thought he
palpable.
got better as the game got on.
Yeah, it's just
Um,
teams were they Tampa was keying in on him a lot, and it's just like that is enough to kind of help open things up for the Niners. However, they do not have George Kittle today. He is banged up. He's going to miss today's game. 6-point favorites for the Niners. I don't know, man. Like they barely got out of there against Tampa. Debo Samuel's choking out the long snapper. Rolling his eyes and being pissed at Jake Moody for missing kicks. Meanwhile, our head case, CJ Gardner Johnson, walks by during Elliott's interview saying, and he's still the best effing kicker in the league. So, when our like crazy player that is like a bit unstable is in a way supporting our kicker who had one of his worst games in recent memory versus the Niners player like grabbing the throat of the long snapper and yelling at the kicker for missing kicks and not celebrating the walk-off field goal because he's still bitter. Like, I don't know. Make of that what you will. Um, I'm taking Seattle +6. They're coming off a bye. They get Metcalf back. That game was really close for majority of it on Thursday night a few weeks ago. McCaffrey being back definitely helps, but again, McCaffrey's a ticking time bomb with those Achilles, and I think without Kittle, who has easily been their best weapon this season in totality, I think they're going to feel it a little bit, and I don't think the San Francisco defense is going to have a fun time trying to slow down Metcalf, fresh off a bye and fresh off his injury. So I'm taking Seattle +6. Keep this game close. Tight divisional game. Seattle season, it's coming down to this. This is like their season's almost on life support, and this is it right here.
well, I got some. Brock Purdy's never lost to the Seahawks,
That doesn't surprise me.
and like I'm taking the Niners because like if the Seahawks lose this game, and by the way, I'm going off the whole like the line doesn't matter 80% of the time when I'm picking these games. Like 80 to 85% of the time, the line doesn't come into play. It's either outright win or the home team covers.
So I see what you're getting at here.
And like, dude, Geno Smith's just not been good. Like, I think part of it is they're running a college offense. They're running an actual college offense. And like, I don't know, does not helping Geno out. Like, I don't like, if they think you can throw Sam Howell out there, you get better results. You're not.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael, if the Niners lose this game, like, they're not going to make the playoffs. This is a game they need to win to keep in playoff contention. They have to win this game because
both these teams are desperate.
Like are because the Rams own the tiebreaker right now over the Niners. The Cardinals have a last place schedule, kind of like the Commanders. They don't have to worry about that. I don't know. I'm just taking the Niners, dude. This is a must-win game. I don't have any faith in this Seahawks team.
Next game we have, which is probably
it's a Super Bowl rematch. Super
the
Bowl
shadiest line I've ever seen. Very strange. The Broncos are at home against the Falcons. The Falcons are 6-4, coming off a really, really rough loss. The Broncos are 1.5-point favorites at home against Atlanta. Doesn't that feel a little fishy to you? Like, are they outthinking themselves here? Like, the Broncos coming off what was super emotional loss to the Chiefs. All signs were pointing to them giving them their first loss, and the field goal gets blocked, and just another peg in the Chiefs being, you know, voodoo devil magic sort of win for them, and the Broncos are rewarded with being a 1.5 point favorites at home against the Falcons. It's interesting. I I feel like I gotta take the Falcons here. Like, I don't see them, like, yeah, like, I know their defense has struggled a bit, but it's not like Bo Nix has looked great. I mean, the Falcons tend to play these close-ish games. They beat the Bucks by 5. The game came down to the end. Dallas made it a one-possession game in garbage time. You lose the tough one in New Orleans. But, like, Koo was missing kicks again. Like, some of these guys are just straight up missing
So the
kicks, and Koo
Falcons
missed
have
the
a
big
point
ones.
differential of +2, and
Mhm.
Denver, despite getting completely waxed by the Ravens,
Mhm.
have a +20 point differential. So I think Denver isn't as bad as we perceive them, and I think we overrate Atlanta. With that being said, Atlanta's 3-1 on the road this year. I'm going to take Atlanta. I'm taking Atlanta as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I can't. I don't know. Like, I just can't buy it. Like, I think it'll be interesting to see how they handle this game. Atlanta, they'll
I mean, let's
probably. I'm
be real.
assuming
I
they'll
mean,
run the
let's be
ball a lot.
truthful. If it wasn't for the demon magic of the Kansas City Chiefs,
Mhm.
Denver's coming off their biggest win in the Sean Payton era.
Right, but that's also, like, that's an emotional win. That's like a, Hail Mary type of win sort of thing, you know?
Yeah,
It's
but
interesting.
yeah, I'm taking the Falcons. All right.
Alright, next game we have game of the week, the 9-0 Kansas City Chiefs on the road against the 8-2 Buffalo Bills. The Bills are favored 2.5 points at home. Chiefs gotta lose eventually, right? Like, it was on the tip of everyone's, like, tongue last week. Mahomes was not good, missed Xavier Worthy for a touchdown, a deep one, and then missed Travis Kelce on an easy one, on the goal line, which almost cost them that game because, they kicked the field goal to go up, but touchdown there would have required, some more, would have required a touchdown on Denver's part and perhaps put that game away. But the field goal, um,
I think we're overthinking that maybe a little bit.
I mean, I don't know. Like, they won, you know, because of the blocked field goal. That if Kansas City, they won 16-14. If you score the touchdown, you're up. They're going for two. They're either up 21-14 or 19-14. Denver would have needed a touchdown on that last drive instead of getting the field goal. Touchdown to, you know, Kelsey there at the end of the game. That almost, you feel a lot better about yourself instead of just kicking the three. But regardless, Mahomes missing throws, has not been great this year, as a whole. Feels like they need to lose coming off, talk about emotional wins and stuff. That was an emotional win, blocking a field goal. You thought the game was over. I'm taking Buffalo -2.5. If there's ever a time for the Bills that they beat the Chiefs, it is in the regular season. I think they've beaten Kansas City, what, twice in the regular season? Obviously never in the playoffs, but I know they've beaten them before. They've beaten them in Kansas City before as well. This time they get them at home. This is a big game for the entire AFC. The entire AFC should be rooting for, Buffalo to win to kinda give everyone an opportunity to sneak in for, the 1 seed. It gives the Ravens a chance, gives the Bills obviously a huge chance, and all that sort of stuff. So I'm taking Buffalo -2.5.
Yeah, I'm taking Kansas City here
You're just not.
because for a couple reasons. One, there is absolutely no way in hell that the league office is gonna let not have the officiating side with Kansas City.
Okay. And
Like,
that's it?
well, and like what, like we, um, I
Perhaps I'm outthinking myself, not taking the Chiefs.
I feel like when we look at the Bills, like we know how good Josh Allen is, obviously, and he's
Mhm.
out playing Mahomes this year. When is Mahomes just gonna, I don't know, have like, a decent box score coupled with great on field play? Because if you're noticing what teams are doing now against the Chiefs offense, they're like, all right, if we can stop the Chiefs ground game and like just get Mahomes to force the ball to like his weapons, which aren't as good
Mhm.
as in like the past. We have a better shot than letting us get, drop 8 dudes in coverage and just give them like 6 free yards every play, right?
Mhm.
This Chiefs defense isn't as good as it was last year.
Their run defense has been excellent, I will say. Their secondary is not as good, but it's almost being made up for by their run defense. They're not letting teams get anything on the ground.
And like you said, everyone's going to be rooting against the Chiefs. I just feel like when everyone massively roots against the Chiefs, whenever everyone massively roots against the
You're
dynasty
right.
team comes out and wins.
You're right. I'm overthinking it. I'm taking the Chiefs. I've taken the Chiefs. I think every week this year I've taken Kansas City, and I don't see a good reason why to change it. Kansas City's coming off the bye. Yeah.
Are they?
No, no, they're not. They played Denver last week. Sorry, 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 sorry.
Chiefs
That's my bad.
schedule.
When is their bye week? Did they already had their bye week, week 6. That's my bad. Regardless, ignore. I'm taking the Chiefs as well. You've convinced me. It's a fair point. They find ways, and they're gonna find another way today. All right, on to Sunday night. The Bengals play the Chargers. This should be a good one. I think, like, you look at the Bengals, talk about a team that absolutely needs a win in the worst way. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. Um,
How long?
their
How long has
season is
that
on the
been
line.
said all season? They need a win. They need
They
a
need a
win.
win, and they
They
seem to
need a
just
win.
never be getting it. Like, their season's on the line here. They lose here, they're 4-7. That's about wraps. And like they lose here, they're 4-7, and it moves the Chargers to 7-3. And like, the Steelers are already 7-2. Those are 2 wild card spots that are already taken. They're at an uphill battle, especially if Denver finds a way to win. Now Denver's 6-5, and it's like the Bengals are really, really climbing to try to wiggle their way into a playoff position. They absolutely need today, in the worst way. But Chargers are playing good football, man. Jim Harbaugh has those boys playing very, very nice. They can run the ball, they can throw the ball. We keep talking about how they'll be the undesired wild card opponent for those home divisional winners. No one's going to want to play the Chargers. Um, and their defense, their pass defense has been very, very good. And I think obviously that plays well against the Bengals. I think I'm taking the Chargers minus 1.5. I think this might be, put a fork in the Bengals. This might be it for them.
I'm taking the Chargers as well. Let me ask you a question, Michael. When Justin Herbert plays these games against like other marquee quarterbacks,
Hmm.
like besides when they beat the Eagles, like in 2021, which Jalen wasn't even a
I mean, he
marquee
wasn't marked,
quarterback at the
yeah.
time. Like, do you remember a time where he's beaten another marquee quarterback?
Um,
I don't think he's
like
ever
he's
beaten the
like he's
Chiefs.
he's 2-6 against the Chiefs in his career. Uh, he's they played 2 games against the Ravens. Um, and they got hammered 34-6, and they lost 20-10. So he's 0-2 against the Ravens. Let's see his record versus the Bengals. 1-0 against the Bengals in his career. And I guess that's kind of it for the marquee AFC teams. So yeah. So what's your point here? That he's not going to play
I
well?
feel like no one's like we know how good Herbert is, but I feel like the knock on Herbert when you like listen to people talk about I know at least around here it's like, oh, he's ever beaten anyone good. He's
Never
never
won
won
anything.
anything. Well, if he wants to build that legacy of being a like great quarterback, I suppose, numbers notwithstanding, guys in his position win this game. I'm taking the Chargers.
Yeah, it's a big spot. Big spot for because listen, not saying they're going to win the division, but they win today. Chiefs pair that with the Chiefs loss. All of a sudden, Chiefs are 9-1. Chargers are 7-3. You're on the doorstep there. I mean,
Well, no, I think the big thing is like
have the Chiefs. They played the Chargers what once this year? When did they play the Chargers? And the Chiefs won 17-10.
well,
They
remember
play
when
them
they
again.
suspended Derwin James for that like BS like
Yeah,
play?
that's a Sunday night game in a few weeks. Chiefs Chargers. That'll be a good one. But the Chiefs, like, listen, if the Chiefs still have to play the Bills, they have to play the Chargers, they have to play the Texans, and they have to play the Steelers, and then they play Denver again. So, you know, people talk about, oh, who do they play? Who's gonna like? They're not playing slouches the rest of the year either. Like they're playing like good teams, not best team in the league, but they're playing a handful of good
They're playing
teams.
teams that they're going to most likely face in the postseason.
They're playing teams that absolutely are capable of winning a big game. And then the final game this week, the Battle of Texas. The Houston Texans are on the road against the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football. 7-point favorites are the Houston Texans on the road. They haven't been able to cover a spread. However, CeeDee Lamb just popped up on the injury report. Feels like that could be a business decision. I don't feel like playing, potentially. The Cowboys, you talk about a team that looks dead in the water, a team that is just quitting at every instance they can get. The Cowboys quit last week. Cooper Rush was putrid. It was a very unserious team. Um, Micah Parsons was a factor in the first half, and then you didn't hear his name the rest of the game. CeeDee Lamb was just not having it. It was just they're terrible in every sense of the word. It's just one of those years for them. They
D'Amico
have
Ryans is a former Eagle. He probably doesn't like the Cowboys very much.
I guess, man. Every now and again, the Cowboys have a year where they're just like really, really bad, and this feels like one of those years. So I'm taking the Texans -7 to like coming off whatever the hell that was last week against Detroit, where you lose a game, you get 5 interceptions. Feels like they are aware of the situation, and they get Nico Collins back, which is massive for
That's
them. So,
gigantic, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah. So I'm taking Houston.
I'm taking Houston as well. I think Nico Collins makes his reminds everybody that he is probably one of the most underrated receivers in pro football. You know,
Yeah.
no one ever brings him up when you talk about the elite receivers in the NFL, I think, in my
hmm
opinion. I do think though with the Cowboys that I have this weird feeling because they have 3 wins.
hmm
If they bomb out the rest of the season, they might get the first overall pick in the draft. Like,
Uh-oh.
look at the like you said, guys making business decisions.
Yeah.
Like that, they're one win removed from the first overall pick.
Right. Yeah. We'll see.
I could see the Giants beating them. Like that Brian Dable finally beats the Cowboys. Like, yay!
Yeah,
We
I mean,
finally beaten
It'd be
them.
Cooper Rush or maybe
Trey
Trey
Lance.
Lance.
Like Trey Lance goes out and throws 6 picks. Like
Like,
he's
not for nothing, there's no reason for the Cowboys not to be playing Trey Lance every game from here on out, just to see. Like, what's the harm?
Michael? Can I just bring up that the two of the 3 worst quarterbacks in the history of pro football, like busts, might have been Cowboys, Ryan Leaf and Trey Lance.
I mean, they've been Cowboys, I guess.
The
They
Cowboys
weren't.
try to have a reclamation project with
Yeah,
both of
sure.
them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's yeah. But
Did they still have the
anyways,
curtains up for this game?
it's Monday night, so I sure hope they don't need
They're gonna put
listen,
curtains up.
they had curtains up for, like, Friday's, boxing card, so
Yeah, boxing.
mhm.
Um,
Anyways,
that's
our
it for
show,
the show, man.
everybody.
I mean, I don't have anything. I mean, do you have anything else you'd like to
No,
close
I
with?
do not have anything to
No, me
close.
neither. Anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy
Very nice
hopefully a
Sunday football.
stress-free day of watching football.
Yes.